All right, guys, I just gonna make a short video kind of going over the things that are going on in Uganda, kind of how we got to where we're at, how I met Eddie, what happened while I was there, and kind of what the plan is going forward, just to kind of recap just a few things. I've been meaning to do this for a while, so I apologize for the delay. I got back and work just got really crazy. I don't really have a good excuse other than I just got super busy. So I'm going to run through this kind of quick. I'm going to talk fast, but feel free to watch this, multiple times if you'd like. But I just want to go over a few things that happened while we were in Uganda, and again, kind of how we got to where we're at right now. And this is the extent to my tech abilities, so I apologize for the quality of video that I'm producing here, but this is the best way I know how to do it, I guess. Anyone who has questions on anything I'm going to go over here today, whether you're concerned about whether or not it's legit or what it's like, or maybe different ways to get involved, or if maybe you're wanting to take a trip with us or get involved in one way or another, my cell phone is 620-960-5547. You can always reach out to me on Facebook or different forms of social media. I'm an open book, so I'll be happy to answer some questions for you. It means a lot to me to be able to share kind of what we've got going on, and this is something that's been kind of near and dear to me and my wife's heart for a couple of years now. If you'd have asked me 3, 4, 5 years ago if I would be involved kind of in going overseas and doing this kind of stuff, I would have told you absolutely not. There's no way that I would have ever thought that this is a place that I would end up going. I've always kind of had the idea that I would simply send money and help this kind of stuff, accomplishing these kinds of things. But I never thought that I would actually be, I guess, what you call, boots on the ground, if you will. I think through obedience, God is blessing what we're doing, and so I feel like we've been called to do what we're doing, and we're doing the best that we can. With that said, I'll be the first to tell you, we don't know everything, and so if people have ideas or suggestions, please send them our way. There are some videos as well throughout this, so you'll probably see a couple different clips like this one also. So about 2 years ago, I got a friend request from Eddie. This is Eddie Kwezi. You might find him on Facebook. It's EDDIE, Kwezi, Kwezi. Eddie's 33 years old. I'll go over his story a little bit here in just a few. Initially, in my first 6 months or so working with Eddie, I didn't post a whole lot. I didn't talk a whole lot about it. And I've told Eddie this too, so I hope he doesn't take offense, but I just didn't know if what he was doing there was legit. A lot of times when I get friend requests from different people around the world, it's followed up with an immediate request for money. And so I was kind of concerned about that when I got the friend request from Eddie. And I think if I remember correctly, all I really got from him after I accepted his friend request was a message from him telling me that I have a beautiful family and he'll be praying for us. And I was kind of impressed with that as well. Over the next 6 to 12 months, we watched what he was doing. We prayed for him and the kids. We got involved a little bit here and there, bought some rice for the kids, helped with some school fees and things like that. But I ended up being able to kind of confirm his legitimacy through a few really cool ways that God orchestrated. And so again, I'd be happy to answer some more questions and go over some of that stuff if people have questions on that in the future. On our trip, we took a lot of toothbrushes and soap and different things like that for the kids. Got to learn a lot of the kids' names and get to know them pretty well as well. So the kid at the front of the screen, his name is Fick. He's super cool. This is actually the orphanage where the kids were staying when I got involved initially. So I almost actually didn't take this trip. I had a couple different conversations with a few friends of mine and my pastor as well, and I ended up going ahead and jumping in and taking the trip a little bit sooner than I thought I would. We're planning another trip for November, so if there's any interest in that, the sooner that you can let me know, the better, so we can start helping you to raise funds and things like that to go with us. Lots of different ways to get involved. The kids are awesome. This is me in the guest house. This is one of the bedrooms. I know that if you've never been overseas or to Africa, especially, that thing hanging from the ceiling may look kind of silly, but that's what's called a mosquito net. You actually lay that over the bed so you don't get any mosquito bites while you're sleeping. I didn't see very many mosquitoes while I was there, but still don't want to get bit, so pretty common. This is standing outside my room in our guest house. One of the things that Eddie and I have been doing is trying to find ways for him to make some money locally on his own. He doesn't want to be in a position to always have to have people. Those are my underwear. He doesn't always want to have people asking. I mean, he didn't want to always be asking people for money. He wants to be able to earn his own money there and be able to help the kids. So one of the things we did was we actually set up a guest house so we can rent out these different rooms. And we're looking at a few different ways to start businesses there. So I'd like you to meet Esther. Esther is one of the volunteers that works there. She is a born-again Christian. In a past life, she was in a prostitution ring and has come to know Jesus. And Eddie does this he actually has about 15 volunteers, and he does this with a lot of people where he will go out and talk to people who are either less fortunate or in prostitution or in an employment position that they do not like. And then he offers to teach them a different trade, like housekeeping, like what Esther's doing right now, or tailoring and things like that, and shows them how to make money legitimately, so they don't have to do the kinds of things that they've been forced to do over the years. So anyway, this is Esther, and at this time she's washing my clothes. So the water that comes out of that basin actually is just rainwater, but she's actually getting ready to wash my clothes there. So Esther's pretty awesome. Let's keep going. That's the rainwater. Here's another view of the guest house that we have there. So this is where we would be staying if you decide to come along with us sometime. Just to be clear, this video here is not necessarily like a sales pitch to get you to go to Africa with us. If God lays that on your heart and you want to go, the door's open. Come with us. If he doesn't, don't feel obligated to push something that you're not feeling led to do. But just so you know, this is kind of what it would look like as far as where we'd be staying and everything as well. Everybody, has a calling and has something they're supposed to be doing, especially if you're a Christian. You are called to be missional in some way, but it doesn't mean that you have to be the one that travels. So, I mean, whether you wanted to just pray for us, that's a huge win. If you want to take a trip with us, if you want to help finance trips, if you want to help to mobilize different things or raise funds from different places or find gifts or donated toothbrushes and things like that, there's tons of different ways you can get involved. So I'm happy to help you brainstorm on different ways to get involved. That's an African sunset right there. So a couple volunteers here. You got me and Eddie, of course. Next to me is Nangawi. And then next to her is Medina. And then next to her is Angel. And if I'm not mistaken, Eddie and Angel have been friends for a very long time. I think they went to school together, if I remember the story correctly. Angel's a lot of fun as well. These are what we call street kids. These kids showed up at our office there at the guest house. They wanted some food and some clothing and shelter and things. We have 110 kids right now, and we're trying to find sponsors for the kids. And so if you're interested at all in getting involved, sponsoring a kid is a way that you can. It's not very expensive to do that. It's just a small monthly commitment. And you'd be able to interact with those kids periodically through Eddie as well, FaceTime and video chat and things like that. And it makes a world of difference. But these kids are looking for that as well. Unfortunately, we have to turn a lot of kids away because we're struggling to take care of the kids that we have already. So we're looking for sponsors to take care of ours. And then once ours are taken care of a little bit better, we'll start to open the doors and maybe bring in some more of these kids. We were able to get these kids some food and some new shoes and things when they came in that day, but an ongoing commitment is not something that we can do right now. It'd be irresponsible of us to take on more until we get what we've already got established running more efficiently. So big pile of dirt. Switching gears, we actually, Eddie and I had a conversation probably a year ago now with an idea of maybe starting our own school. Any one of us here in the U.S. could sponsor a kid overseas somewhere, and it really shouldn't make a major financial impact on our finances. If we could afford $30-40 a month, it's not that big a deal. But when you got 106, 110 kids now, that's a pretty sizable financial burden. And so we had this idea that maybe we would start a school. What ended up happening is Eddie was helping, and Eddie's a helper, man. This guy, he works hard, and he finds opportunities to help other people, whether it is finding a small family that's struggling to make ends meet, and he'll show up with $20 and help them buy a couple extra chickens where they can lay extra eggs and they can sell that to make extra food for their family. And he'll do little things like that a selfless act that he doesn't want nothing. He probably doesn't want the recognition I'm giving him on Facebook right now. But he does that kind of stuff. And so he had helped a man find a job. And then that man's mom was so grateful that she came back to Eddie and said, you can have this plot of land. You can have this plot of land for 10 years. They wrote up a contract, said this is yours for 10 years. I want you to pay for it. You can just have it, use it to whatever you see is beneficial for you and the kids. I know what you do, and I'm grateful for what you did for my son. Here's some land. It's not a ton of land. It's probably half an acre, I would guess, but said do what you want with it. That happened right after Eddie and I were talking about possibly opening up a school someday. So God's in the details, and he definitely obviously cares about these kids. And so they started moving some dirt around and started building a bit of a foundation. Here's a short video of me standing inside of what it turned into. I don't have any pictures of in between them moving the dirt to when we had a foundation. So this is where the dirt was moved to and turned into a foundation. This is the school that we're about to open. It actually opens February 1st. We still need some sponsors for kids as well. That's Eddie and I getting some lumber to go work on the school. These kids are just local kids in the slum here in the area. You hear them saying Mzungu. That means white man, or white man, or English man, or rich white man. It's not a derogatory term. I thought it was when they first started calling me Mzungu, but it's not. It's just what they call me, I guess. Very matter of fact. So here's me standing inside the school with several kids that are local. They thought the hair on my arms was about the coolest thing they've ever seen. So everywhere I went, they were messing with the hair on my arms. So.
How are you? You speak English? I got another one right here.
We'll keep on going. So just for time's sake, this here is Regan. I was working with Regan on hanging some lumber. We actually got quite a bit done since then as well. So here's another image of the foundation from the outside. They moved all that dirt in there. They actually make the bricks by hand. They actually form them, get a little bit of concrete, mix it with dirt. So all of this is made from hand. I mean, they did this work themselves. Here's a bunch of the volunteers. I think the next picture, I got all their names on top of their heads here. So anyway, every picture's got a 30-minute story, I can tell you. I'm trying to keep the video kind of short just out of respect and keeping it kind of brief. But these guys are all Christian. They're all volunteers, and they're doing this for free. The only payment they really took was a high five and a little bit of food. So good guys right here being helpful. I got some more updated pictures here in a minute. Those are the bathrooms there on the right side. They got the septic put in and everything. We got to have a bathroom. A couple of requirements that we have to have for the school is functioning bathrooms. We have to have security. We have to have a chef, and we have to have teachers. And so those are going to be monthly ongoing expenses. The bathrooms are not necessarily a monthly ongoing expense, but that is a requirement that we have to have as well. Here are the desks for the kids. And actually, Eddie sent me some updated pictures. These have since been painted or stained. They're dark now, and they say Kwezi Child Foundation on them as well. Maybe I can post some pictures in the thread of those, but they've come a long way. I think the windows and doors are now installed, if I'm not mistaken. The chalkboards are on the way, teachers' desks, all that stuff is coming together. We had a couple of local folks here in Hutchinson that kind of had it on their heart to donate to help see this through. So it's been pretty awesome to see God work in different people and kind of calling them to contribute to help see this through. Some volunteers out here helping to get it done as well. These are the Touches, John and Carrie Touche. I'm going to slow down for a second, maybe tell you a little bit about them. So when I got that friend request from Eddie, man, 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, or right around 2 years ago, I had taken a minute to look at Eddie's Facebook. Because again, I get requests from people all over the place, and I don't always accept them, just depending on what I saw on the Facebook. But something I saw on Eddie's Facebook was him shaking hands with what looked to be Westerners, or a bunch of white people wearing the same shirt. It looked like maybe a mission trip or something like that. And maybe it's kind of judgmental for me to use that as a reason for me to accept a friend request. But I saw him shaking hands with them, and it looked like he had some kind of structure in place where there were volunteers coming out and helping. His Facebook, he was posting in English, so I knew that he at least spoke English, so I could have conversation with him. So it seemed like it made sense. Well, the shirts that these volunteers had, it said Unison on there, UN, and then it had the number 1, and then it said SON. So Unison, and I think 6 or 8 months after I'd accepted this friend request, and my wife and I, Joni, were getting a little bit more involved in helping Eddie. I still had this kind of ounce of doubt, if you will, in my mind about the legitimacy. I just wanted to make sure that the money I'm sending and the things I'm doing are going to what I wanted them to go to, and what Eddie said they have gone to. I'd never met Eddie. I basically was falling in love with what he was doing and what he was telling us, and I would argue that this guy is probably my best friend today. He's a great man, but at that point, I'd still never met him, and so I was looking for ways to validate, to kind of put to rest my own concerns. And I've shared some of this with Eddie. Some of this he may not have heard. So if he's listening to this video, then I'm sure he's probably giggling. But I Googled that shirt, and I wanted to find out more. And this is, again, 6, 8, 9 months after I'd already accepted his request, and we're already helping. And that shirt says Unison, and it has that 1, and it means united under one sun. Turns out there's a church out of North Carolina that had put together a mission trip, and they were all wearing these shirts when they went. So I look up the church, I call and I talk to the pastor. I kind of cornered him on the phone for probably an hour, and I kind of feel bad about that now. But I had a lot of questions and a lot of concerns. And he's looking at the pictures, and he's saying, "Oh yeah, that in the picture, that's Brian, and that's Joey, and that's Sam," and he's just naming all the people. And so then he starts asking these people who are in his office, I guess, or in the same church as him, do you remember this guy? And he's pointing at Eddie in the picture. And they all said, "No, I don't really remember him. When we were on that mission trip, we met with so many people there with so much need that this was just another day. Like there's just so much need there that we don't specifically remember this guy." That was them in the picture, and that was Eddie, but they don't remember each other. Nor does Eddie remember them necessarily. So it wasn't super helpful. But the pastor says, "Well, I got a guy on the ground there. His name is Johnny Touche." And the pastor, in his own words, he says, "I don't know Eddie, and I don't know everything that's going on there." He said, "But I know Johnny, and I love that guy. And if he's involved in any way, I would send my wife and kids, without me even going. And I would rest easy knowing that everything's taken care of, because that's the kind of guy Johnny is." And so I said, "Well, I'd love to talk to Johnny." So I found him on Facebook, and I got his phone number as well. And Johnny was gracious enough to take a couple of my phone calls, and he actually took a trip to Jinja and basically validated that what Eddie was doing was legit. He said, Eddie's way underfunded. He doesn't have enough money to do what he needs to do, but he's doing much with little. He's doing a lot with what he has. And it just really kind of validated what we were doing, and it made me feel a lot better. So to kind of jump ahead a little bit, I know it seems like I'm switching gears quite a bit, but where I'm sitting at right now with all these kids is inside of a church. So if you look around, you see some tables and some chairs and things. And this is a church that Johnny planted. I didn't know about this place until I got there. What I found out is that Johnny has planted 20 churches in 2 years, which is impressive in and of itself. And I know he's not looking for recognition, so I hope he's okay with me sharing that. But he's planted 20 churches in 2 years, and one of them is literally about 40 feet from the school that we're building right now. So, Africa is a pretty big continent, and Uganda is a pretty good-sized country. For us to be working in the same town and have he has missionaries that have gone there from his church. I know of missionaries that people from my church are involved with that have gone here as well. And we're building a school right next to a church. This is a pretty big God thing, in my opinion. And so we're looking for ways to collaborate and kind of have some synergy. So hopefully I get to work with Johnny and Carrie in the near future, or we will get to work with them to where maybe the school will benefit their work and their work will benefit ours, and we'll just kind of come together, obviously with a very common goal. So pretty neat to see all that coming together so close and nearby. This is a time of worship. Actually, I'm going to shrink myself a bit. This is a time of worship in that church that morning. See the kids playing the drums. And I probably won't play all the videos just for time's sake. Keep going. There's Pastor William walking down the middle right there. And so Eddie and I attended church there that morning, and I don't fully understand the culture, but they had me sit in the front. It's kind of different, I guess, but I got to sit in the front, so I kind of had a different point of view with my video here. But Johnny came and preached that day, and he had Eddie translate for him. So this was
your faces. I remember.
So this was a small clip of that anyway, but I'm gonna keep going. On the right, you'll see Pastor Robert standing next to Esther. And then you see me looking goofy standing next to Medina, then Eddie, and then Pastor William. And so they actually came over a couple days after, this is probably like Tuesday, I think, after church. And we were kind of talking about how we could come together with their church, where maybe our Christian-based school can help their kids while their church can also, just again, kind of some synergy there. So I really liked having a conversation. Those are some good men right there. This is Andrew. I'm just seeing, I got a couple of notes. I want to make sure I'm covering everything for you guys. Excuse me. So I think about a year ago, the Ugandan government shut down all the schools, all the orphanages, all the children homes in the area, in the whole country, actually. There's over 500 of them that got shut down, is my understanding. And the reason being, again, initially, it really made me angry when I heard that. But the reason that they had done that is because a lot of the locals were abusing that system. They were dropping off their kids when they didn't need to. Kids were becoming orphans that shouldn't be. And the ratio of volunteer per kids were not good. I mean, you shouldn't have 40 kids with one volunteer. You can't properly take care of them. They don't have the mother, father figures in their lives and the role models and things that they should have in that case. And it was getting abused. So the government just said, no more, we're done. And our center was one of the ones that got shut down. They came back out since then and said, okay, you can have children's centers again, but here's the standard, here's the requirements. And it is a daunting task to get to that point when right now we're just trying to find ways to keep them fed and clothed and in school and cover the medical bills. To add to that, you got to have this kind of a quality of building with all these extra requirements. Unless someone watching this video has a much deeper pockets than I do, we are not in a position to do that right now. So this is Andrew. This man is pretty amazing. He is a pastor. He is also works at a school called Daystar School. It's a Christian school. It's a private school. And he also has adopted several kids as well, which that may not seem like adopting kids, even in America, some people are thinking that is a pretty big deal. Well, doing that in Uganda is even a bigger deal because most of the men, they have 2, 3, 4, 5 wives. They end up having 4, 5, 6 kids with each wife, but then they bail. They just disappear. Now, I got 4 kids with that wife. That's becoming too much of a nuisance. I'll go get me another one. And so the idea that a man would have one wife, and not just one wife, but have multiple kids of their own, and not just that, but they would add a couple extra kids to the pile to where they actually adopt some other kids that aren't theirs is extremely uncommon. And that's Andrew. So Andrew is a pastor, a teacher, works at the school. He's going to help us with our school. I believe I saw some videos of him there talking about it, and he's adopting some kids. So a very good man there. And anyway, what they did here, you see all these beds we're standing around, is when they shut down our child center, Andrew and Eddie, they cut all of our bed frames that you saw down, and then they stacked them 3 high and welded them together. And Andrew did away with their library, which is not a good thing. I really wish they didn't have to do that. But he did away with the library, which is where we're standing at right now, and put all the beds in there and brought all the kids, and basically made a makeshift boarding school. We're not licensed as a boarding school. This isn't what we're supposed to be doing right now, but it gives the kids shelter for a short period of time until we find homes for all of the kids. So that's kind of what the next phase is right now. The kids are attending that school as much as they can. As long as we can find sponsors to help cover the tuition. This is a shower that Eddie had helped build so we can have a place for the kids to take showers at the new boarding school. These are beans. This is called maize fried. It's corn ground up. When it's done, it ends up looking like mashed potatoes. Or porshel. This is porshel.
This is Joel.
Yeah, Joel is the cook. He's the chef. That's a boat oar that they're stirring that with. Eddie called it a mingling stick. I'm gonna keep going. But basically, so where I'm at as far as what I believe our plan is going to be. These are all the teachers. We got to pray with them. We got to meet all of them. Great people. The plan is going to be to find 2 sponsors per kid. The thing is, when you think about an operation like Mentor Leaders, amazing operation, or you think about an operation like Compassion or World Vision, give me one second. You sponsor a kid, 35, 40, 45 bucks, whatever that sponsorship fee is, and the kid goes to school. That usually covers tuition, the teacher's fees, probably breakfast and lunch, maybe a uniform and books. Gets them a decent education. In some cases, like Mentor Leaders, a phenomenal education. They see it from start to finish. It's pretty amazing. Kids speak 3 and 4 languages when they graduate. I mean, they know a couple different trades. It's very impressive. But their model is they go to school, get the education, food, and everything, then they go back home. These kids don't have homes. So that model doesn't completely fit ours exactly. And so what I'm hoping to do is to find 2 sponsors for every kid. And Eddie's role is now changing from actually having an orphanage where we go in and we have all the kids in one place, to he's finding decent homes for every kid, preferably husband or one wife, preferably Christian, preferably near the school so they can get to school. A lot of preferences. It's very difficult to find all this, and preferably someone who's willing to take on an extra kid or 2 when they may already be struggling to take care of their own. But it would be a better environment than the alternative where they're sleeping in a ditch. So that's kind of what we're looking for right now. And then as we find these, I'm wanting to find a sponsor to sponsor that family. 25 bucks a month. And what you're doing is you're basically paying $25 a month per kid to this family, and that's going to cover clothing. It might cover like hospital bills, doctor bills, things like that. And that's just for them to survive. So now they have a place to go back home to. The second sponsor per kid will be that $35, $40 in that range per child, and that's going to cover breakfast and lunch at school, the school fees, books, the uniforms, and that kind of stuff as well. So 2 sponsors per kid takes care of all of them. We've got 110 kids. It's a big need. We need to find sponsors for the teachers as well. About $100 a month per teacher. That's what they make. So about $100 a month, $50 a month for the chef, $50 a month for the security guard. So we need to find a couple people who are sponsoring a few of those people as well. That's the plan right now. The things that you could pray for is that, of course, if you have suggestions, input, anything like that, I'm always open to those ideas that you may have for us. But the other thing is, do we partner with somebody? We've already got different operations, and I've talked to some of the folks who work in these different nonprofits that would be willing to come alongside us. Do we partner with them? Do we do our own thing? There's a lot of things, a lot of decisions to be made. So anyway, pray about that stuff for us if you would. Kind of keep that in mind. I'm going to keep rolling here. I'm trying to wrap up as quick as I can because I'm kind of going long. This is their new library. They had an entire building for a library. Now they have this closet. This is their office at Daystar. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about Eddie. I'll keep this part kind of brief as well. This is Mr. Kwezi himself, 33 years old. And he was raised Christian, but he was orphaned at 8 years old. And so that's part of why he has such a heart for all these kids, is he himself was an orphan. On the left, you'll see Eddie with his dad by the car. On the right, you'll see his mom with a typewriter there. And then in the middle 2 pictures is Eddie himself. At 8 years old, he was orphaned. Then he actually had to move in with his aunt and uncle. This is his Aunt Sarah. And I'm sure I've misspelled Walakila. Eddie, I'll apologize publicly for misspelling it, but I'm trying to remember names. And so I put some of these notes on here for myself, so I apologize. And then his cousin Derek. And what you're looking at behind there is the building that Eddie grew up in from the age of 8 all the way through college. Eddie is very intelligent. He wouldn't be the one to tell you that. I'll be the one that tells you that. But he graduated top of his class, even though he was an orphan. And in doing so, in his circumstances, they gave him a scholarship to the University of Kampala. It's the best university in the country. And so he went to that university for tailoring and for engineering. Graduates, starts doing pretty well financially. The boss is grateful for his contribution and how hard he's working, and offers to send him on a holiday, on a vacation each weekend to Jinja. Now, Kampala is like the biggest city really in Uganda. Jinja is about an hour and a half away. Now, a little history on Jinja. Jinja, it actually rests right against Lake Victoria. If you look at a map of Africa, Lake Victoria is massive. It borders, I think, 4 different countries. And that water wells up from the earth, and it turns into the Nile River. The Nile River goes right through Jinja, so it's a little bit of a tourist spot. So anything you've read in the Bible or any old books about the Nile, it starts in Jinja, right where Eddie was traveling to. So the boss is grateful, says, hey, take a holiday every weekend, go ahead and go to Jinja and stay at my hotel that I own there, have a good time. And what ended up happening, and I'm going to paraphrase the story to the best of my ability, Eddie made a few friends there that were showing him the area, tour guides, if you will, young men. And one of them was noticeably distraught one day. And Eddie's asking him, well, what's going on? What's the problem? And he says, my dad's very sick. And Eddie said, well, let's go take him to the hospital. And so now you got to know that in Jinja, in Africa as a whole, if you want to go to the doctor, you got to pay the doctor bill first, and then you can go see the doctor. It's not like America where you go see the doctor, you get a bill, you pay it later. There, you pay it first, or you sit in the waiting room with your broken arm or whatever until you have the money to pay it. So I'm assuming Eddie was going to pay this doctor bill. He agreed to go ahead and take this man that he never met, it's his friend's dad, to the hospital. And he died on the way to the hospital. He did not make it. And Eddie later found out that this man was taking care of 4 orphans. These were not his kids, including Eddie's friend was actually not his kid. So again, going back to the culture, the idea of a man adopting kids, especially orphans, is very uncommon. It does not happen very often. They're kind of the opposite of that generally. And so Eddie, an orphan himself, finding a man that is poor, that is taking care of 4 orphans, was very moving. Eddie quit his job. Now, you got to also understand that Eddie went to school to be an engineer. In Uganda, he would do very, very, very well if he pursued a career as an engineer. His lifestyle would be very different than what it is today. He gave that up and went and took care of those 4 orphans. And basically, every time he went back to Jinja, the kids' numbers were multiplying. We're at 110 now. And that's when I met Eddie on Facebook, is when he has 110 kids already. So we have since stopped taking on more kids. We need to get this part under control, get our schools up and running, find teachers that are sponsored and get sponsors for the kids. And then we'll maybe open the doors back up and bring in kids gradually and hopefully educate them, introduce them to Jesus, let them know that they're loved, make sure they're fed and clothed, and that their doctor bills are taken care of. And hopefully we'll make a change long term by raising up a new generation. So that's the plan, and that's where we are right now. So I'm going to keep rolling. This is not far from where Eddie grew up. These are people that are just digging through the trash for food, literally. In this place, it smelled pretty bad. I'm going to go back one slide. I hope you can see my mouse. If you see the people standing back here, where Eddie grew up is like right here. It's just across this trench right here, right by this trash. I don't know why I put the birds in there other than they were really freaky. If I were standing next to them, they'd be up to my chin. They're really, really, really tall birds. I didn't like the birds, and birds don't bother me. But these birds were just super weird. So I just put them in there because they were unique, I guess. It's a family digging for food. So again, I told you, Ed, the numbers of the kids have compounded. These are our kids. This was Christmas this year. We got a few donations. We bought 3 goats and some rice and some tomatoes and stuff for the kids, some soda. They each got toothbrushes and soap. Those were their Christmas presents, and they were stoked. They're very grateful. And that's the last picture. It's just me and Eddie riding on, those are called boda-bodas. Those are taxis. You hop on the back of a motorcycle if you want to take a taxi around. Most of the time we had a car rented, but we hit a traffic jam, so we hopped on some motorcycles. Has nothing to do with the story. Other than I accidentally put that picture in there. So I went probably about 10 minutes longer than I wanted to, and I apologize. Any questions, there's no bad questions. I'll do my best to answer it. If I don't know it, I'm going to tell you I don't. I'll get a hold of Eddie and we'll figure out how to answer the question. But feel free to reach out. I appreciate you taking a minute to watch a video, and definitely appreciate any prayers and involvement that you may give. Love you guys. Thanks.